Hello, I'm Wendy Nelson from Tiny Dog Reading. In this video, I'd like to talk about how to read a book with a child. Now, I'm sure that you've been told you should read with your child, and that sounds like a really simple thing to do. Pick a book, sit down, and read. But there are some ways you can make that experience both more enjoyable and more effective so that your child will begin to learn the value of reading. I'm going to show you some of the things you can do while reading with your child. And I'm also going to put a link below this video to my free guide, How to Read a Book with a Child. The guide contains 6 easy tips for adding fun and interest to reading time. So here we go. The book that I have chosen is one of my personal favorites, But Not the Hippopotamus by Sandra Boynton. I'm not going to read you the whole thing because that would be a copyright violation. But we will take a look at some of the pages together to give you an idea of how I would sit down and read this book with a child. If you like what you see, you should definitely try to find this book at your local library or bookstore because it's a really fun one. So the first step in reading together is, of course, choosing a book. It's best to allow the child a say in this process, because if they have a choice, they're more likely to be engaged and interested in the book. It gives them some sense of control. Children will often choose the same book over and over again. And I know that that can get boring for you as the reader, but kids love repetition. It's a lot like how people watch the same movie or TV show multiple times. It's comforting and it's familiar. But once more, it gives them a chance to master the vocabulary in the story and to build their verbal skills. So try to remember that your child is learning every single time you open that old favorite book, even if it's the 15th time they've read it. So now that you've chosen your book, I've chosen mine. Let's take a look at the front cover. You're going to read the title and look at the pictures and make some predictions about the story. So with this book, I would sit down and say, the name of this book is But Not the Hippopotamus. What do you see in the picture? Do you see a hippopotamus? What's he doing? Do you think he's trying to hide behind that tree? That's silly. He's too big. What do you think he's going to do in this story? Now, obviously, this would be a conversation with the child, and I would give them time not only to answer my questions, but to ask some of their own. Don't rush through this part. Making predictions is a great way to build critical thinking skills. So after you've looked at the cover together, talked about that a little bit, you're going to start reading the story. And depending on the age of the child, you might have to read every word to them, or you might ask them to share in the reading with you. Now, this can look several different ways. Maybe you stop and point to a word that they know, that they can read that word. Maybe you read a sentence, then they read the next sentence. There are lots of ways to share the reading task, and it will very much depend on the age and ability of the child that you're reading with. Do not force them to help if they don't want to. You want them to enjoy the reading process, not feel like they're being tested every time you sit down to read together. So it's perfectly fine for them to just sit and listen, and you read the whole thing out loud to them. Nothing wrong with that. As you progress through the book, you should stop every so often to talk about the story. So let's take a look at this page right here. And we have a moose and a goose together have juice, but not the hippopotamus. And this page would lead naturally to some questions like, what kind of juice are they drinking? Why aren't they sharing their juice with the hippopotamus? And then you can connect that to your own child's life. Well, what kind of juice do you like? And who would you share your juice with? If you come across vocabulary that might be new to your child, you should point that out and explain it. So for example, on this page, we have a bear and a hare have been to a fair. So you might want to ask your child, what is a hare? That's kind of an unusual word. And then help them find the answer. Okay, this says a bear and a hare. Well, this is the bear, which means this must be a hare. What is a hare? Oh, it's another word for a rabbit. We've just learned a new vocabulary word. When you get to the end of the story, spend some time reviewing what happened. Ask your child to retell the story or to summarize it. If there's a lesson to be learned, talk about it. So in this story, the hippopotamus keeps getting left out. You might want to talk about that. How does it feel to be left out? Why is it important to include others when we're doing things? And then finally, you can try to carry over something from the story into your everyday life. So in this book, we have characters trying on hats, having juice, going to a fair, and jogging. Which of those things could you and your child do together? And when you do them, remind your child that you read about them together in that book about the hippopotamus. These simple ideas can turn story time into a fun and engaging experience where your child learns to enjoy the act of reading while also learning new vocabulary and critical thinking skills. Be sure to click the link below this video to access my free guide, How to Read a Book with a Child. And please let me know in the comments if this was helpful. Until next time, happy reading!